Gene Roddenberry had been working in television a lot and had his hand in quite a few television shows, but of course Star Trek was his big success and cemented his immortality for all time. But at the time that Star Trek was being made, he was still looking for other avenues because the ratings were not good for the series. And a common thing that happens within television shows, even to this day, I mean, people are chasing after the Marvel expanded universe model for just about everything, but it's not really all that new, especially with television shows. When you look at All in the Family and all the shows that it spawned, stuff like that, and quite a few other shows did that. These were the spin-offs of those shows. So it was no different for Star Trek when Roddenberry was pitching a new series to see if that could get picked up, and he would have this other show to move on to, since it looked pretty much like Star Trek was done. It got a third season primarily based on our letter writing campaign from fans and whatnot, and so that's what saved it for a third season. But then after that, it was over. But Roddenberry was pitching another series, and he would continue to do so for quite some time. But the first one, or well, I don't know if it's the first, what else he was doing at the time, other ideas and shows, but was demonstrated in this episode of Assignment Earth, and that's pretty much what it is. It's still a good episode, even though I've done some reading on it where apparently in the pitch there's no mention of Star Trek or anything, as if they'll never acknowledge that it happened, where I don't know why. I guess they felt like they might be limited if they acknowledge that it exists in the same universe, where the ultimate future of Gary Seven's world will be the Federation and all that. I don't know, but be that as it may, this was sort of their pilot episode within Star Trek. And so the basic premise is Gary Seven is a human, but he was taken by some aliens. We don't know who they are, even to this day, as far as I know, unless there was, again, novels, comic books, what have you, spoke to it. But they're super powerful, probably godlike. And they train these human agents to go back to their home worlds and watch over it and protect it from extinction. So Gary Seven is his code name, and he shows up. The Enterprise has traveled back in time to the late 60s to monitor Earth now that they've discovered time travel. So this time they chose to do it, and so there they are, basically just observing the Earth. And then suddenly they get a transporter signal to their ship, and they say, well, that's impossible. There's no one around who can do that. And it's from a great distance, which is even impossible in Star Trek time, or Kirk's era. And surprise, it's Gary Seven and his cat Isis. And they're like, what the hell's this? And they suspect he might be an alien disguised as a human to try to cause problems with the Federation, travel back in time and change history and that sort of thing. So they don't know, and that's the whole quandary. And Gary's able to escape. He gets to his office. It's all decked out like James Bond. He's got all this stuff in there. He has a cute secretary who is completely unaware of this. Gary was to check on two other agents, and we never know what happened to them. They've disappeared. That's never answered. Of course, had this been picked up as a series, maybe that's one of the plots they would deal with as to what happened to these other agents who are also human but had been trained by this alien society on a planet that the Federation, even to this day, has no knowledge of. Although I would imagine with Kirk's kept log and whatnot, the Federation, might want to be on the lookout for this. So there's lots of possibilities one could derive from this episode, should they choose to do so. But so there's this interesting little chase they have. There's a launch that's going to happen, and they're trying to build a nuclear platform in space. So there would be this platform to launch nuclear weapons from in the Cold War days and all that. And if it screwed up, or if it had been successful, it would have meant that World War III would have happened and possibly annihilate the human race and all that. So Gary is going to sabotage it so that it's deemed a failure, and they decide not to pursue the matter. So that's what happens. But, of course, Kirk and Spock don't know what he's up to. Again, Spock goes down with him, so they have to give him a hat. He insists on having Spock available. And ultimately, of course, when they're trying to take control of Gary Seven's computer, Spock's trying to do it, but he doesn't really have the know-how because he's unfamiliar with it. And ultimately, Kirk just has to trust Gary Seven to do the right thing, in which he does, I guess. Maybe that's when the whole timeline got ruined, and now we have terrible Star Trek. That's all it was. It was a setup there. Terry Garr plays Roberta Lincoln, I believe it was. Very young Terry Garr there, looking very cute, and that would have been her series, I imagine, if it had been picked up, and her and Gary Seven would have been on these adventures, and she has to discover all this stuff. And it even implies that Isis is some sort of shapeshifter, because at one minute it was a cat all this time, and then suddenly it's this sexy brunette lady sitting on the couch, but only Terry Garr sees this and no one else does, so they don't know what that's about. But I imagine had it been picked up, it would have been explored further, and maybe she represents the actual alien planet that trained Gary. Who knows? But it's kind of left up in the air there. And I'm sure if there were novels and comic books, that's interesting and everything, but needs to be on the screen. So I would say, there's something to look back on if you're running out of ideas or whatnot to expand on the Star Trek world. Sadly, it's just not in the hands of people who know how to do that. I sent a Photoshop to Doomcock and Gary from Nerdrotic, saying if Alex Kurtzman finds out about this episode, he'll make the connection. And so the book character from the third season of Star Trek Discovery has a pet cat named Grudge, I think, or is it? No, it's Grudge. So there you go. See, Grudge will suddenly turn into probably a man, not a woman this time around. And then they'll learn that. I think they've already done an episode. Somebody lets me watch a few. I just don't really care about it anymore. But some things piqued my interest, so I looked into it, and it hasn't gotten any better. It's probably gotten worse. Because I thought, they might do that. Maybe that's what he is. But they've already been to his home planet, and they're not super duper aliens or anything like that, unless of course they've changed over time. It's in the distant future, but yeah, let's just hope they don't do that. It's too bad, because someone who actually understands Star Trek could probably do some cool stories out of this, but but still, some people look at it as just shameless that he's Gene Roddenberry is using Star Trek to promote something else. But they did it well, and if it had been picked up, that might have been an interesting thing. I would rather it remain connected, But anyway, it's an interesting little nugget from the world of Star Trek. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.